We'll take it back.
Hello, everyone. Salutations and welcome to our glorious Ashes of Creation June development update. We hope that everyone is
Margaret
well,
looks fried.
and been having a wonderful month. We've got a 3-day weekend coming up. We're excited.
I know! It's 4th of July!
Yeah, here in the U.S. So we're excited about that. And of course, we're excited to show off a little bit of combat. So if you don't know us, I'm Margaret Crone, our community marketing lead. And with me, as always, is the one, the only, Stephen Sharif, a.k.a. our creative director. And his beautiful blooms behind him, the orchids. The orchids.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The orchids.
The orchids.
Can they see that?
Yeah, they can see that.
Nice.
And of course, today we will be going over our quick reminders, and then we'll be showing off something you all have been anticipating, which is a small slice of combat. But this will be a basic weapon attack update. We'll be also showcasing some character arts updates and doing our studio update, and then Q&A. Doing stuff in a little different order because we want to get straight to the juicy stuff because we know y'all.
Yes, we have taken your feedback into our run of show, and Margaret has changed things around so we get to the meat faster.
Meat.
All right, and of course, for that, we have our next dev discussion, which is going to be about. I mean, it was already up already. It's about gear color customization. So we asked you, how do you feel about dyeing your gear? How far would you like the system to go? Do you prefer a full color range that allows for some odd color combinations, or more limited one that preserves visual fidelity and realism? So if you haven't gone over to our forums,
all of them,
given us feedback on that, please do.
All of them.
And then, of course, our next one will be on world map discovery. So definitely process your feedback on that.
There's been some changes on the world map front, but I think we'll save that for a future update. But there has been some significant changes.
Yes.
Just to tease that.
I mean, that's going to be a fun update. I can't wait to. I can't wait to showcase that. And of course, we have our comment of the day, or of the month, I should say. And if you would like your comment to be chosen, all you have to do is when we upload this to YouTube, go over there, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you are subscribed, we will be picking a random subscriber to be showcased. And for this one, we've got Ram SLB, who wants to know, or who noted, love this idea and impact of seasons in the economy. However, I feel that 1 week real time per season is way too short. It should be like a month in my eyes. Otherwise, this vision of people carrying things around won't really happen. People will just stock up a lot for the winter, and that's it.
So that's an interesting comment, and actually just want to touch on it real quick. The weather systems, the season systems, that's going to be a obvious point of testing for Alpha 2, of course. You know, we're going to play around with the different cycles and times, and how they impact the economy, the rotation of resources, the movement of goods. All of those things play into the purpose, one of the purposes of having seasonal systems. So that is something that we are going to play with during our Alpha 2 testing, and we'll land on what feels both most comfortable, is visually appealing, but also has the impact on the economy that we desire to see on the design side.
Yes, so of course, thank you all for your feedback. We've got a ton of seasonal feedback, and we'll be compiling some of those things and sharing them with our development team. So we really super duper appreciate all of that. And of course, just a quick reminder that our opulent negotiations, cosmetics swap
Scorpion with 2 stinners
at 11 a.m. Pacific. Reminder that all of the variants made from these sets you'll see in game as NPCs, creatures, buildings, etc. And we'll actually be showcasing some variants today if you don't follow us super closely. For those of you who do, you might have already seen some of those, but we've made some updates to the imagery. And with that, I think we can go into our basic weapon attack combat update. If you want to
Yes.
set some preface
I would
to the
like
video.
to, yes, I'd like to preface the video. So
Mm.
I made this decision. What was 3 weeks ago? I stepped into.
Three or
It was
four
like 4 weeks,
weeks ago.
ago, 3 or
Yeah,
4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I stepped in and I talked with Margaret.
We had
and
another topic originally planned for
we
this
did.
month.
However, it had been weighing on me that I wanted to begin showing some of the combat that we were getting completed for Alpha 2. And rather than having a big grand reveal of all of the
Mm-hmm.
class kits and abilities and the combat changes that we've made, I want to segment up these updates into smaller chunks so that people have an opportunity to comment on specific aspects of the changes that we've made for combat.
Okay, sort of
And
flooding
the
everybody.
first and foremost one that made sense for us to do, which is probably the most foundationally core aspect of combat, is going to be the basic weapon attacks. And I wanted to showcase and focus on the changes that have been made with regards to the directional movement functionality, root motion versus split body, the ancillary components of combat that are animation, VFX, and audio, and just show that at a base weapon level. So we decided that for this month, what we're going to do is give you guys a look at those basic weapon functions. There's a couple of skills that are thrown in there from our weapon master class, but it's primarily focused on the feeling of that basic weapon combo attack, right? And I want to make sure that you content creators out there who make content for Ashes and kind of relate to your audiences the updates that we provide, that you contextualize this update in the appropriate manner, because of course our engaged audiences, they see this update, they've been watching our progress for a significant amount of time, and they can touch point A to B to C and see that progress.
Mm-hmm.
But unengaged audiences, they look at something and they don't necessarily always have the best context for active development and what is a work in progress, of course, and they will look at something and assume it's a final product. Now, as you know, this is not the final product. We always iterate. We continue to improve. There's a lot of stuff that still goes into making combat a good thing. And combat's a really touchy subject because, you see weather effects and you see seasons, and those can look universally good. Or you see a character creator, you get the versatility and the functionality that's present there, the customization options. Those can be universally perceived as very good. Combat is a very different type of subject, right? There are a lot of different ways that combat can be portrayed in games. All of us have our own subjective view of what is good combat. Do we want super fast pace, very tactile, slower pace, tap targeting, all those types of things? There's a realm of
right?
exactly. There's a realm of preference there. But with that being said, we have taken feedback specifically from Alpha 1. And we've tried to iterate upon that feedback and present it in such a way with this video that gives you context for those basic weapon feelings, those root foundational types of movement and pacings that exist. So keep that in mind when you content creators out there are kind of relaying this information to the audiences that might not be as familiar with the project. Let them know this is just to focus on the basic weapon attacks. It is focusing on that aspect of combat. We will unveil additional aspects of combat, being ability systems, class rotation.
Yeah, that chat. This is
We'll
just
talk
basic
about the
combat attack,
reflex
okay?
pipeline and
Basic.
how that advances with with the ability system as well. Those are going to be additional beats that we hit leading up to the next few months that we'll showcase on these streams. But this
and also,
first one,
this is the melee specific basic weapon attacks.
yes, that's
There's
right.
still
We'll show ranged,
versions.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Steven.
I had a great time filming this yesterday. I think the team has done a phenomenal job. If you do some comparisons between where we were last year and where we are today, there's a significant difference. So
And
I
we've
hope
taken
you guys.
your feedback from Alpha 1.
Absolutely.
You all sent us a lot of great feedback. A lot of those things were things we already were thinking of adjusting and changing as well. So we hope that you
Yes.
see that culmination as we showcase this. And, as we showcase further along the other pieces that Steven just mentioned, we will hopefully you'll be able to see some of the feedback just from this update as well.
Absolutely. Very
right.
excited, guys.
Are
Enjoy.
you ready? All right.
I'm
we'll see
ready.
you on the
Show
flip
me.
side.
Show me the goods. Ammo Engine 5, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream day for Ashes of
Look at
Creation.
that boat.
Super excited to be with everybody today.
It's
We
a nice
have a
little ship.
pretty awesome showcase. I think it's something that the community has been asking for a little while. Actually, I think the last time we showcased some combat gameplay was a year ago, roughly, almost. But I am very excited to show you guys what we have in the works today. I have joining us with me today two of our extraordinary engineers, Adam and Keenan. How you guys doing?
Hello, Steven. Doing well. How are you?
I am doing very good, running around like a chicken with its head cut off, but otherwise very good.
Nice.
Keenan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you. This is your first stream, I believe, correct?
This is my first stream.
Very cool. Adam, you've been on a
Ooh.
couple ones before this, yeah?
Yeah. It's good to be back.
Very cool. And then I also have joining us today one of our senior game designers, Mr. Trad. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back on stream.
Welcome back. Very excited to show what you guys have been working on, what the team has been working on. I know I probably already said this on the stream, but I'm going to reiterate it here, that what you're about to see is not the final combat in Ashes. This is a portion of the combat systems. Obviously, a lot goes into making combat, right? From a visual effects perspective, from a mechanics and functionality on the engineering side, the design elements and how it synergizes with our class kits and ability systems, the balance of these things, the audio component, the UI. There's a lot that goes into making combat for an MMORPG, and the combat you're going to see today is very focused on one component, actually two components, I'm sorry. The first of which is our basic melee weapon attacks, in addition to our floating text UI. So
Ooh.
keeping that in mind, that is the context of today's presentation. Previously, I had decided that I wanted to wait to showcase combat until, excuse me, until we had pretty much everything done and ready to show. And as time grew, I decided what I wanted to do instead was showcase little portions of each component of the combat system, starting with the basic melee weapon attacks, and then we'll move into, in a later live stream, the ability systems and the class kits. And of course, we're not going to show every class kit and everything that's going to be in Alpha 2. We want some of that to be a surprise, right? But we do want to showcase the work that's been done and the direction that's been taken so that we get player feedback. And personally, playing this, I think it feels amazing. I think it looks great. I'm super impressed continually by our team's talents, as I know a lot in the community are after having seen the character creator and the weather systems and season systems. There's a very high quality bar that we're setting ourselves up for with Ashes of Creation, and I think it is what the community wants. But it's great to have these touch points where we get your feedback. So focus today is going to be on basic melee weapon attacks. It's going to be on root motion versus split body, the types of agency that's provided to the player while also respecting the weightedness we want from certain weapon groups, and also talking about the UI element and showcasing floating text and the types of customization options that players are going to have. So keep that in mind. That's the context of today's presentation. And when you give the commentary, let's focus on what you like and what you think there could be improvements on from that perspective. So without further ado, We are in probably an area that you guys are familiar with. This is the Riverlands biome yet again. You saw this in the last month's live stream, but we are in an area that is known to harbor some scary things. So I'm just going to start kind of walking down in this area, and Adam, Keenan, Trad, if you guys want to talk a little bit about how this process began all those months
Unreal
ago
looks so beautiful.
on defining good combat for Ashes of Creation.
Sure. I would say, it starts with, all of the hundreds of thousands of hours, cumulative hours of
Yes.
MMO we have under our belt, right?
We have a lot of hours of MMO gameplay under our belts collectively.
We just got to push a couple buttons and we're immediately like, oh, it feels good or it doesn't feel good.
It's funny, Keenan, actually, you say that. One of the I mean, you guys all know this because every one of you went through an interview with me, but one of the qualifying aspects of joining the team is, what type of MMOs do you like to play?
Nice. Yeah, so it starts there, and then from there we sort of do our research. We have to take a look at the state of the art, and then we
Oh!
we study it. We form hypotheses about what exactly it is that makes things feel good or not feel good, and then we make those things in as controlled a manner as we can. And then we turn the knobs, we tweak things, we see what feels good, what doesn't feel good. We come up with some rules, some processes, and then we put them to the test. And this is what comes out.
I do like
It's,
the floating
It's a very iterative
text.
process, right? Like,
Fun.
one of these things are like you form your theory on paper and then you go and you make the thing and it comes out to be exactly what you see now, right? Like it starts out the first time not super great, and then what we have to be able to do as engineers and designers is identify what is not great.
Whirlwind boys!
And just continue to iterate on those things. And that's, as long as you keep making it better each time, eventually you're going to end up with something good.
Yeah, and for this exercise and in finding what makes Ashes great specifically, we wanted to approach it from the ground up, answering individual questions about our hypotheses and what we think is good, right? So we really focused on individual aspects that we think makes good combat and answered them one at a time in a very tight iterative process. And we ended up at something that we think feels really, really good. So
Yeah, just playing this, I am loving the hit reacts, the visual effects, all the ancillary components that go into making the combat, but more importantly, the pacing of this kind of heavier weapon group. Also, as a side note, outside of the combat, one of the things I've not necessarily liked about MMOs traditionally in the past is that excuse me, every portion of land is covered by some type of monster, right? And it kind of gives you this weird feel. But here, like, this is a very dangerous area that we're in, the environment, and part of it gets communicated by the aspect of these rocks and like the specific types of materials that's represented here, but you don't know exactly where the threat lies per se, right? You kind of move up into an area, and if
then you get
you
jumped.
move too far, you get the audio cue of the monsters like arising. Your character gets into the combat stance. They have some really cool aspects of animation. The animation team did an amazing job with the rolls here. I am loving, and also they're like just like swinging away and then flying off. That is so great.
Yeah, I really like the camp feel of this area where you don't just see these guys scattered around all over the world. No matter where you go, there's like something that's gonna aggro you. It's more like, I'm gonna grind here for a bit.
Yeah,
Steven, you were talking about how you like how heavy the
Little one,
the sword
little and big
feels,
one.
and that weight impact, that is one of the combat pillars that we have been studying and honing in on in our development process.
Oh,
The other side of it is The other side of it being also like
I like how he
agency,
falls
you know,
apart
to
at
what
the end.
extent does this weapon respect your intentions? And that's the part that's important to me. I'm a classic player. I come from traditional MMOs, right? Like I want to be able to move and attack at the same time.
Right. Yes, and that was a huge point of feedback actually that we received during Alpha 1 was that we started with this more root motion approach to the basic weapon attacks, and ultimately we called an audible mid-test. I remember it was in that end of July or beginning of August month, where we decided to implement a completely split body approach and get player feedback. And of course, the feedback was very positive, resoundingly positive, right? That players prefer that agency over that weightedness, but they also, there's a little bit of a conflict there because they also didn't like the floaty feeling which comes along with not having the weighted approach. So how did that play into your guys'
Like, Raw, look at the Rolly boys.
the weapon attacks? How did you blend those two?
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, so we kind of approached it from looking at player agency primarily, as Keenan had said, and the games that really handled player agency the best are those like classic MMOs, right? Players really like how smooth the classic MMO feel, how much player agency they get out of it, and then we took that and we tried building this sort of impact and weight on top of it, really making attacks feel satisfying, making it feel like the inertia of the weapon and your movements are accurate, you know, physically accurate. And we accomplished that through a number of ways. Really, again, talking about the process, we tried identifying each individual aspect of what we got out of these, you know, more modern action games, and tried incorporating that into our classic MMO base. You know, I think it all comes down to looking at it not as a binary of, you know, are we doing split body or are we doing root motion combat? It's looking at everything as modular pieces and then dialing in those numbers to make something that feels high in player agency, feels very impactful.
Oh, he's got daggers now?
Inertia, it feels very physical.
Yeah, my litmus test for agency in combat is take any moment in combat, pause time, look down at your hands, look at the keyboard. The buttons that you're pressing should be the directions that your character is moving. So with these weapons, even though there are little bits of root motion here or there, they're always respecting your WASD input, and I think that's what makes them feel good.
I think another thing that you guys did that helps with that is the timing of what that gets registered, right? Like, it's not, you know, at one iteration we had it where it detected what your input was at the beginning of the attack, and that just felt like if I decided to change my mind and go left instead of right in the middle of that attack, it's too bad. It already kind of queued that, and so I think now what you guys are doing is having it happen at like swing time, right?
Yeah, it's
show us more of the
constantly
daggers,
looking at
Steven.
your input and adjusting.
Now I've equipped these daggers, this dual wielding, these dual daggers. Talk to me a little bit about the differences between the heavier weapon group and the light weapon group.
Yeah, so initially in our investigation, we wanted to start with the light weapons to figure out how to really blend
Seems kind of cool.
the weight of an attack and introduce, or start with player agency and then introduce that weight of the attack into it. We figured the least risky weapon to start with would be the lightest weapon possible. You know, little daggers that move very fast, very high player agency, and not necessarily focused on big weight, much like a heavy sword. So we started with that and tried introducing little bits and pieces here and there, like small bits of root motion to get that nice like dashy feel in when you're attacking, and play into that inertia. I know Keenan might want to talk more about the animation timing sheets we introduced for figuring out these timings that feel good.
Yeah, that's part of our process for communicating cross-department is using frame timing diagrams and being specific about how we not only want to animate, but also how we want to move during different frames of the animation. And we found that to be very successful. But one of the things that makes the daggers different than the sword is that the daggers never really slow you down. They're both respecting your directions, but the swords will actually slow you down at certain times, like leading up into the strike, your split body movement
Because
is
of the
sort
weight.
Blending down towards 0, and then you strike, and then it blends back up toward to 1. The daggers are not doing any blending like that. You're just split body, and then you're striking, and then you're back into split body. It's like a seamless process.
Yeah, I'm just playing with the directionals here. I mean, on the animation team, they did a phenomenal job. I'm loving the kind of foot placement and movement, the strafing feeling on the body there. I know Alexi did a lot of work on the IK as well, that we can see, like when you're, kind of stepping up different portions. It feels really good to play.
Oh yeah, considering how physically based we are and animation driven our combat system is, it was super important that the animators, get all of that right, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I mean, one of the biggest things I think to making good feeling attacks is getting all of the departments involved in what feels good and on the same page, right? Getting everyone iterating. So, like in the process, we started with chopping up animations to build an ability that we thought felt good. And then we wanted to pass that off to animation to finalize those animations by chopping up our abilities and making animations that feel good. And then we can all loop everyone back together and finalize that ability. VFX has the same process too. So, it's a bunch of different departments iterating on a very micro scale to build something that is just awesome.
Yeah, the animation team definitely had to take a deep breath when we went to them like, hey, those 3-part weapon combos that we like so much?
I like the ship in the
we want
background.
different ones for each direction that you can move in. Oh, and also you need to be able to weave between the directionals at any time.
That is pretty funny. One of the things that's interesting and is always a point of contention for those of us who have perhaps played different games and have become accustomed to specific visual representation of these damage floating text, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to showcase a little bit. I'm going to let them hit on me for a little bit just so you can kind of see directionally damage you take, which is indicated in
Yep,
this
so they can crit as well. Look at that. Crit.
floats
27.
your left-hand
43.
side. And when you do damage to a target, they float to your right-hand side. Now, one of the very important aspects of these floating texts is providing the player with customization options that they can adjust the size of the floating text, they can adjust the color composition on how these texts are represented. They can also include damage icons to indicate the ability that's used for those floating text. And importantly, excuse me, we also call out the crits that you do in a separate way, how they pop in. They're slightly above those, the other numbers. And then more so, we also have additional functionality for cumulative damage values. So I'm going to kind of go through that. You'll see here as I press, different option. Now we've changed the colors. Whoops, hold on. Let me see. Make sure. Is that color going off differently, or am I just, do I not have my... Hold on.
Still yellow.
Is it? Okay, let me try this real quick. Oh, maybe that's not. Hold on, let me find a different monster. I hope that's working. If it's not, we can show that a little later. Let me press this button. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you see the color is changing now.
Ah, yes,
and that's
yes.
something that the player has agency over, right? You can assign different types of colors that you want. That was changing. I think the one I was pressing actually was changing the size. So let me try to change that size again. There you go. You can see that size now is larger.
Yep.
You can showcase XP if you want. You can bolden the numbers a little bit as well.
Full customization. That's
Kind of
good.
Maximum flexibility and character customization, player customization options for these floating text, I think, is super important. But I love the way that they feel, that kind of classic, very almost, what were we saying, Keenan? Very vanilla vibe.
Oh, yeah, sometimes the best flavor is just vanilla.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah, but the UI team's done a great job on the functionality for that. I think it's feeling pretty good. Yeah, that's very cool. So, where are we now when it comes to kind of the spectrum of light to heavy attack options on these basic weapon attacks? What's kind of next for this as we showcase it to the players?
Well, I think we've sort of defined our spectrum with the light and the heavy when it comes to agency versus weight versus impact. When you look at the heavy, I think we're close to saying that this is sort of the most we want to compromise agency for weight and impact. And once we have that upper bound, we can sort of play with all of the different intermediate points, right, as we start to build out other weapons. But we have interesting explorations as well in how all of this translates into ranged and also ultimates. We might take the limiters off for ultimates and just see what the coolest things we can make are.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. Another component, by the way, of defining kind of this weapon attacks is also the visual effects side, and weapon trailings, the intensity of those weapon trailings, how they scale based on the type of weapon, the level of weapon that you have, but not just the trailing on the weapon per se, but also the ground decals. Like for this heavy weapon, that first strike, you see that kind of the decal in the ground.
All those little details.
I love that look. And even on the backswing, like when I hit the ground behind me, it's causing that decal.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff gets down into the really low-level systems details. Like, we want to pass the artists as much information as we can about actual combat ongoings so that they can inform the effects as precisely as they can, or as precisely as they need to, rather.
Yeah, and we really wanted to build on a technical side. We really wanted to build the combat system to, like I said earlier, be as physical as possible. So we have it very animation driven. Everything is handled based on a reference of animation as opposed to like nebulous timings, right? Which allows it to feel very impactful and very responsive. So when you hit the ground decal actually appears on the ground when it should. You know, that's something that may not be seen in other MMOs. So we really wanted to make a big focus on that and focus on the responsiveness.
Yeah. One thing I failed to mention, by the way, apologize for that, is actually you guys are seeing the Pyre male for the first time in game. I know we've showed him on the stream before. As these characters get further fleshed out, but here you're seeing him in
doesn't look too bad.
Flesh and blood, so to speak, virtual flesh and blood, I guess, in the game. That's pretty cool to see. I can't wait for players to kind of get a look at the customization options and the character creator for this race. Also, another thing that's you know, really important, I think, is the audio component, and Kat has done a phenomenal job in both the sound design for creatures as well as for the weapon. And actually, you guys haven't seen anything yet because we have a lot in store on that front that I think is going to be pretty cool. And it's all part of the presentation, right? It's all part of what makes combat feel good, is also the auditory component. In that, talk to me a little bit about the capabilities that the audio team has when it comes to accessing combat and the abilities.
Yeah, similar to VFX, we plan on piping in a lot of information. You know, that's something we've been working a lot on recently, is tooling for VFX and sound effects, right? It's a super important part, as you said, of the package in order to sell that weight and that immersion in the game. And there's going to be a lot coming online, so I'm you know, really excited to see what we have in store for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever show it on stream, but we're building a sort of singular tool that all of the teams can use to build abilities and tweak them. Sound effects, visual effects, animation, design, engineering, all using the same tool, grounded in animation, you know, to build these abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Another component, Adam, which
smoother than Conan's daggers,
worked on is camera controls and adding. Talk to me a little bit about the kind of visuals that are provided through these additional camera controls for abilities in combat.
Yeah, so I mean, the word of the day has been impact and weight, right? And a lot of that is sold through what the player sees. You know, we didn't want anything to be nauseating or over the top, and you know, certainly people can adjust it in option settings, but we wanted something that would sell a lot of the weight without being too over the top and too sort of cartoonish, right? And so we implemented a few different camera effects, things like camera shake, radial blur, and a few other things involved, and really tried to maximize, our bang for the buck with those to sell the weight of these attacks. And it really adds a lot, especially I've noticed a lot of how your peripheral interprets the weight of the attack really sells it for me as a player. So that's something we've been focusing on, and it's made huge improvements to the feeling of these attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Okay.
So, looking forward, as we continue to flesh out both the medium melee weapons, and we'll be showcasing our ranged weapons in combat in a future stream, we're also going to be talking a little bit about and showcasing, which you guys got a little sneak peek on a few abilities, some class kits, and the ability systems as a whole, and what we're able to accomplish for Alpha 2. Of course, we promised at the beginning of this year that you guys would be getting some pretty exciting showcases of all the work that's being done on the project towards Alpha 2. You got that with the character creator, you got that with the seasons and weather systems. Now you're starting to get a little bit of touch on the combat side. And I know that there's a lot of stuff that design has been prepping around, the work that's been done on these class kits and the different archetypes that are going to be playable across Alpha 2. But there's a lot in the store, and there's a lot of functionality that the engineering team has provided our designers when it comes to both the functionality of certain types of abilities as well as the synergies possible between them. You want to talk a little bit, Adam, Keenan, and Trad, about what's possible given our ability toolkit?
Definitely.
Man.
I mean, so this whole, prototype process has been kind of, two steps. One of those steps was what, Adam and Keenan were talking about a bit there with, their hypotheses on, what makes good feeling combat, and they've done a great job on that. But the other side of that was also just, coming up with these almost mock class kits. And, the idea was this might not be the final class, but there will be things that we can take from it that we like and then get rid of that we don't like, and let's just make something. And you guys have kind of seen some sneak peeks of that already from the Assassin and the previous stream, and now you're seeing something from the Weapon Master. That was the other one that we took just to experiment with and contrast these different types of combat. And what I was kind of going for here was, getting class synergies in place where, maybe, for example, you've got a thing that if you kill someone with one of your other abilities, it'll reset the cooldown on one of these abilities. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in this kit, whereas there wasn't so much of that interaction in the kits in, the previous alpha. It was an area that we felt we could really improve. And the good thing about that whole exercise that we did is we came up with a lot of cool abilities. You're not seeing them all here, but they, what it really did for us is it developed our tools, because we realized, we can't do this or we can't do that. And so, like, the designers and Adam and Keenan here would kind of go back and forth and say, like, designers need to be able to do this particular thing that we can't currently do, and then they would take that and they would make it possible with the tools. And so we're really putting our best foot forward here. That when we are going into, like, the full class design, we're going to have a lot of stuff that we need to hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Keenan.
I was just gonna sort of build on Trad's point. Like, all of these exercises, or throughout all of these exercises, we're very careful on the ability system side to make sure that when we're adding something new, we make it as modular as possible. We really want to think of these abilities as being made out of, like, Lego pieces, not being sort of like molded from a single block of clay. So whenever we are trying something and we build something new, that's a new piece that we have to explore and combine with all of the other pieces that we've already made.
Absolutely. The other thing that's important is important probably for players to understand with regards to Alpha 2 is that this is another testing ground, right? Alpha 2 is a test, and in Alpha 2 we're going to represent components of the class kits and the ability system that may not make it to launch, but it is a perfect area for us to kind of get both player feedback
That's right.
as
It's
well
auto
as
test, yeah.
for us to log data around its usage, its impact, its feasibility as essentially a component of our class kits, right? We're going to be experimenting a lot with regards to that for Alpha 2. So it's very exciting.
Oh, definitely. We're just getting started.
Yes, absolutely. Well, guys, this has been a fun stream. I think
Looks
I
kind of
really
neat for
enjoyed
just basic
obviously talking about
basic
this stuff
attacks.
and showcasing the hard work that you guys are doing, everybody on the team is doing across everyone that makes combat a fun and tactile thing for us to play with. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think the team is hitting it out of the park with these showcases as we show, essentially what our quality bar is for Ashes of Creation. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. Please make sure, it's very important that you guys give feedback with regards to kind of what you saw today. It is always something that we are iterating upon, but generally based on what feedback we already received out of Alpha 1 and the pursuits that our engineering side as well as our design side have been examining and playing around with, we feel really confident in this approach for the basic weapon melee attacks. But we want to hear your guys' feedback, what you thought of today, so make sure to comment both in the YouTube section as well as on stream, on our forums, on our Discord, Connect Everywhere.
I'm happy that they're giving us full customization of the UI, the fonts and all that stuff, just like Final Fantasy, and can change the colors and all that.
It is never truly finished, but of course, it is getting close to Alpha 2 ready. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Adam, Keenan, Trad, thank you guys for being a part of it. Always appreciate the insight and the talents that you guys bring to Ashes of Creation as a game. We're very happy to have you guys. So everybody in chat, give hearts for our awesome guests today, and I will see you guys back on stream.
Yeah. Alright. Oh. Well, I'll get you quick thoughts from what they showcased. It's all pretty basic, obviously. It looks kind of cool. Sort of like the pacing felt a little bit like Guild Wars, which is it's cool. Guild Wars is good combat. The way it hits, probably just a little bit faster than Guild Wars though. That looked, yeah, I'm kind of happy. And yeah, as again, that's just like basic abilities, no like enhanced or advanced abilities to go with it. The movement looked fine. It might be polished up even further as it releases. What else? Yeah, sound effects look cool. Everything look pretty. The mobs look cool. We'll just have to wait and see when Alpha 2 comes close.
Hello.
Well, there it is.
Yeah.
We have ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, so to speak. But I feel like from reading the chat, I do have some questions that you all posted, but it seems overwhelmingly like most of you like it. There is a little feedback here and there, and if you have feedback for us, I believe right now, if Vaknar is following along, we will have a basic weapon attack combo feedback thread posted to our forums.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of comment real quick. So the biggest takeaway that you can ask yourself after watching that, if you're a member of our core audience who's been following development for the last few years, is the direction and the improvements that you've seen here the right direction? Is that a positive growth from what you have seen last year
I see an overwhelming yes.
versus to where you are seeing it now? And if that is the answer that you give, then what that means from a development perspective is that it will continue to get better on that path. And the reason for that is we are taking our time when it comes to the quality of this game. And what that means is the additional bells and whistles, the more polished look of animations and visual effects, and as we expand on this idea of combat with class rotations, all this stuff is going to come together into a very tactile, kinetic style of combat. And that's our goal, right? And this gives you a look at what that directional change has been. And if you like that directional change, realize we're not even in Alpha 2 yet, and this is where the combat's at. So by the time we're close to launch, you got to project out what that expectation's going to be.
Games take time to make,
Yes.
especially at the quality level and the
Especially
bar that we're
good
trying
games.
to set.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially good games. Look, anybody can rush a game out the door, right? We see, and I'm not talking
true.
negatively about like other game companies or publishers.
Say
or
it,
whatever,
Stephen.
But the truth of the matter is that there are deadlines that projects have, and whether something is finished or not, sometimes that deadline doesn't move. And that can result in the experiences that we've shared as a MMORPG community in other games. The benefit or the luxury, I would say, the luxury that we have on Ashes of Creation is our goal is to create something and not ship it until it's ready. And you as a community are part of the litmus test in determining when something is ready, because our process is transparent. We're showing you monthly updates. So your feedback on something, whether or not it looks good or it feels good, is this ready to be launched into an Alpha 2 or to launch totally? That's something that is a question that gets asked to you guys, right? And to us. And I think that's the important reciprocal relationship that we as developers have with the community. And that's why we ask for your feedback. That's why we ask for you to get engaged. That's why we ask for you to comment on forums, on Reddit, on whatever, right? That is a very important part of our process. And it's something I think that is not unique to Intrepid, but it is something that is not done overwhelmingly across a lot of projects. And so we want to capitalize that as much as possible. And that's why the decision to release small chunks of the combat changes that have been presented and do it earlier was a good one to make. And I'm glad to see the response in the community.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with just doing it in small chunks instead of just dumping a whole, shitload of data on the people. Just little bits and pieces, and you can break it down easier. The community and all that.
Community, I think,
We were nervous, but I think
Yeah,
at the same time, we're nervous every time.
Okay.
We never, we always hope that you like what we
it's
show.
our baby.
Yeah, but at the same time, we know it's a work in progress, and not everyone else can understand that. So it's, sharing our journey. But there were some questions in chat. I would like to try to get to some of those. We do have a Q&A as well that we'll pull from the forums from previous questions that were already pulled. But these ones are specifically questions that people were asking whilst watching, and
Sure.
the video playing in the background as well. So Just Fine wanted to know, can you have Stephen clarify what they meant by this is the upper bound for agency versus weight? Does that mean they want to go more heavy than this, or does it mean there is some room for improvement there?
Well, there's always room for improvement. As I said, it's a work in progress, so
Yeah.
we're going to be improving on those things. However, what's meant by the upper range of agency is there is a balance between player motion and agency, as we call it, right? And weapon weightedness. That almost locked in place, rooted position. The heavier the weapon is,
Yep.
the more restrictions you want to place on that player agency.
Yeah, it's gonna be
to
heavier.
showcase the rooted effect, that weight, that heavy weight kind of aspect. And so what we've done by presenting you guys with both the dual daggers and the two-handed weapon is we've kind of shown the range between that complete player agency in the light weapon attacks, that's the dual daggers, and the maximum range of rootedness or weightedness that's present on the two-handed weapon. And that's the spectrum in which our basic melee combat will exist within. So if there are medium weapon groups that exist in between there, it's going to be somewhere in between that spectrum.
All right. And then these next two questions are both in regards to UI, and I already know the answer, so that's why I'm mixing them together. One is in regards to, and this was a lot of people, so I didn't quote
Sure.
a specific person. There was a lot of people asking about this. But can they change the color of the text,
Yes.
of the floating text, etc.? Customize it in any way, like pick which color they want for crits, etc. And then Snooky X or Snooky S, uh, will there be any HP indicators and things of that sort? Because they didn't see that in this.
Yeah, just real quick. So when it comes to
He's in admin
UI,
mode though.
we have a very talented UI team, by the way, in love with all the work that they've been doing so far. And we are all in agreement that player customization options are paramount when it comes to UI, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a very subjective thing that we've all become, our own flavors we like out of certain components of the UI. And so instead of trying to force down the throat of our players a specific approach to UI, why do that when we can develop options and customization that the players can influence themselves? That includes
Mm-hmm.
color compositions, it includes text sizes, it includes bolded, it includes options of which informations you're
Moving
choosing to
stuff
display.
around, scaling.
Absolutely, like that is our approach from a UI's perspective, 100%.
Yeah, and as a content creator myself, being able to customize the UI to match my overlays and things like that will be amazing, and I've appreciated
Yes.
that in other games. So we're
Yep.
definitely keeping those things in mind for y'all. This next question, there's actually two parts to it. One is from one person, one from the other, but they kind of tie in about the same topic. So this is from the shiniest bubble wants to know. I wonder how much moving the camera slash targeter affects hitboxes. It seems like movement might be moving the hitbox during the attack. And then Mass 7 wants to know, you should not be able to move that fast while swinging. That's their kind of
Well,
perspective of it. So
yeah, no,
those all
I
kind of
think,
tie in.
well, it's important to note that there's a balance in the game design between your movement speed on attack and the movement speed of your opponent. When you have a game that is both PvE centric as
Sappy.
well as PvP centric, you have to make sure that combat is blended for both approaches. And we can always run into problems where if you're significantly hampered
She
in your
looks a bit
movement
burnt, man.
speed, that has an effect on how we expect player versus player engagements to interact. And we don't want to restrict a player's ability to be mobile if they're the target of an attack. And as a result of that, we need to make sure that we don't restrict the movement abilities of the player who is doing the attacking as well. So we want it to be relatively free form, you to stay with each other, your opponents, move around the battlefield together. And if we're hampering you on the attack action, we have to then implement some type of snare or slow or CC effect essentially on your opposing target. And that's not the approach we want to take for PvP.
This kind of is like a segue from that, which is
Mm-hmm.
from Hadukai and Elit, and they both want to know what are some, will we have some avoidable attacks? Is there any chance for weaving or animation canceling?
Oh,
things of that
absolutely.
sort?
Yeah. There are intended dodges and gap closers and mitigating
The basic
increased
stuff.
mitigation effects for incoming damage that are situationally reactively relevant, right? So you see an animation wind up, that's a telegraph on what's coming, and then you have response actions that you can take as a result of that in order to dodge, weave, move,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever, right? It is both a combination of what your rotation is, but also how you have reaction abilities ready to go that you save for certain circumstances that are important.
All right. And then the next one here is from Paulcath, and they want to know, what about camera? How far we'll be able to zoom out? What will be like the min max of zooming in and zooming out? I don't know if you have exact answers on that.
I personally tend to be a fan of having maximum zoom capabilities, right? I want to be able to see what's going on around me. That's my experience as a raid leader, as a shot caller, as a guild leader. I kind of want to have the perspective of the battlefield. And I know a lot of other players like that too. So again, leaning into the player option side here, allowing a pretty significant distance on the zoom is something we're going to be going for. And you can kind of see that as I zoom out in different sections of this combat. It's pretty high up. So
Steven does like to be zoomed out really far, and
I
we've gotten a
do.
lot of feedback that's like, don't zoom out that far. So
I
it's
know
a mixed bag.
it's another subjective thing, but
It's preference.
whenever you have that preferential or that subjective aspect,
Mm-hmm.
give them the option. Give the players the option. Let them choose if they want to be zoomed out, very far, or if they want to be close in. I mean, how many times I've played a game where they have some type of mod that you can install that gives you a higher zoom distance, and I'm just thinking to myself, why do I have to have the mod? Why can't I just have this choice?
And that was a question
Yep.
we've already stated. We don't want to allow mods, but if there are things in customization that you want, please send us that feedback, as we want to implement those things. We want them to be native to the
This
game.
is all. It's only showcasing basic
So the next
attacks.
question here
Nothing
is
else.
from Shuximity, and they would like to know: will different races have different animation for combat? Sorry, Myers.
Well, they won't. What we try to do in order to limit excuse me, there's a lot of stuff to make in an MMO. So I don't know, I've often said this, and making games is hard. Making an MMORPG is probably the most difficult type of game you can make, and our MMORPG is a particularly ambitious one. When it comes to assets, when it comes to animations we have to author, we want to save as much as we can in certain places while also keeping.
Well, if you were here at the start of the video, you would know why they're showcasing what they're showcasing. But for now, kick back and relax, Serpy. Don't stress. It's all G.
The level of quality that we want to hit. So one of the ways we do that from an animation perspective is we're not going to be having, I think, unique combat animations. However, we will have unique non-combat animations, such as your idle, your walk, your run cycle, things that the combat attacks do not have to blend back into, right? Those combat attacks, animation-wise, blend back into the combat idle stance, and then when you're out of that combat idle stance into a non-combat idle stance, that's when you take the unique poses or the unique walk and run cycle, just to give it, character flavor for what
Assuming the getting into combat stance is auto?
Mitigate the bloat that would come
Something
if we
equals
had
onto
to
you?
make all of our combat animations blend back into the combat idle stance, if that was a unique one.
Yeah, I mean, one of those swings is like, they have to make so many different animations just for that one swing because of like all the options that you could choose. Go left, right, straight, backwards. Like, it's not just one animation that they make for one swing. It's a lot of transitions that they have to make from just that one swing.
Absolutely.
We would be here forever if we answered everyone's questions. So I'm going to ask this last one, and then we're going to transition because we still have more stuff to show you all. So this last one is from How to Lose. And I know you asked a very big question, but I'm going to consolidate it. And their basic question is that we had stated that we were going to allow people to use like any class combination, which would be both your archetypes together, being able to use any weapon. Do we see problems that could occur with that? For instance, like a bow tank or an orb tank or things like, will there be some strangeness there, or are there problems that you are foreseeing in the future?
Is the question, do I foresee problems or strangeness from allowing player characters to choose the types of weapons?
Well, it's more, will there be any functions to discourage people from using certain combinations, or
no, we're giving a lot of we're giving a lot of flexibility to the crafters in our game. They get to help define the stat block that a particular item, weapon, or gear has, and that stat block can be relevant to any particular class or archetype combination. So in that sense, the idea is not to see any strangeness there, or not to see any elements that would dissuade a person from that customization perspective.
Okay. So, we'll let you know if things change from there. And of course, just a reminder, we do have a feedback thread up. If you have any thoughts, which from the chat, it seems like y'all have a lot of thoughts, head on over to our forums.com or forums.ashes.
Forums.com, I like it.
Forums.ashes.
I wonder where that goes. They have a spike in traffic.
And toss us your feedback. It's in the general feedback thread for this live stream. So we would love for your thoughts, and we will consolidate those for our design team. And with that, we shall move on to some really cool stuff. Which is our character art team's goodness. And
ooh, look at that boy.
Seeing the Dread Crawler.
The Dread Crawler.
Danny, this is one of our burrower demons, and it's super
It's a
cool.
demon.
Yes, it is very cool. So this guy is a boss that you'll be seeing in Alpha 2. He
Ooh.
lives in the desert biome, but his story is during the fall, and I guess I won't expand too much on it, but during the fall, he was essentially a war machine. He was used by the ancients to help defeat certain cities in the world. And he did so by both burrowing under those cities and coming out from the ground from within, causing chaos while the outside forces would attack that city. Or he could be used as a war machine to just demolish the walls and break through for those ancient legions to make their way in.
Wow, you get a little lore too.
Yeah.
snack.
Gave us the lore, man.
And
Snack.
we have a little turntable of him as well, so you can see the 3D.
I love the interactions that Danny has on the top of his head. The little dude that pops out and his little projectile that he shoots.
Yeah, you can see it
he's
sticking out
got
there if you're wondering what that little piece is.
It is pretty cool.
Shit on a little projector, man. What the fuck?
Little touches everyone puts on things. I mean, it goes back to like the passion that we have. Everyone is super passionate about their expertise in their field, and you just see that in the work that they put out. It's pretty amazing. Stephen has mantled together quite a group of people.
Yes, we have pulled together some very talented people for sure.
And this one is the mantle of
Nice
Radiant
armor.
Grove. We actually have a few different variants of this as well. Like we said, these are
It looks very warm.
or you can see the weapons here as
Colors.
well,
Cozy.
in the world. So one of our developers was like, maybe we could make it so the NPC based on the season would change, the leaves would change color with the season, which I think is cool. I'm manifesting that.
Or some of the leaves just fall off as you're running and you just have like a little trickling of leaves
Make it
behind you.
happen. Sorry, Jim, your team. We're just gonna keep adding more things to your team.
They already have that effect for the trees. We can just
That's
apply it
true.
to the costume.
Well, I think you'd have to have it smaller amount. You don't want like a whole tree falling down.
Of course they adjust it, but that's a
Yeah.
slider.
It's just a slider, Jim.
It is
That's
a
it.
slider.
And then next up we have our curse charger. So this is
Aw.
kind of what I wanted to showcase is like this is the curse charger that you all have seen. This is a little touched up, better. They've been touching up all of the creatures. But here are the variants that you're seeing come from them.
Okay.
Looks quite different. If you've watched a lot of our other streams or seen actually our in-game footage,
Look at the
probably
claws
seen a
on
lot of
that.
variants as well. But I just wanted to kind of show that a little bit more for you guys, especially for the folks who don't maybe follow every little post that we put out there. But yeah,
I
Jinsey
like the
has
claws.
done. Yeah, Jinsey took these and made them even better, if that's possible. She's just amazing. And Eli did the mantle of the Radiant Grove.
Yes.
And last but not least, you did see the Pyre in game, but
Yes.
we have some updated images. If you follow us
Get
on
ready
social,
for some booties. Get ready for some booties.
if you follow us,
Show
on
me the
social-
booty.
yeah, so I tried to post these on Discord to our PI people, and it was not letting me because the
It was getting flagged for
yeah,
nudity.
it was getting flagged for nudity.
Cops ready for you, man.
But
Look at that. Wood elves, mate.
we've taken a lot of your guys' feedback.
Pyro.
Still have
He
the
looks nice.
Branchers, even though some people don't like them, but you know there are other races that you could choose from if you don't like branchlers.
And as we demonstrated, by the way, I know you guys are going to be asking this question.
Yeah,
We demonstrated in the character creator.
there are sliders.
We do have sliders. So it is a thing.
Sliders, Serpy.
I'll
Ooh.
show you this will prompt the slider question, I'm sure.
By the way,
Oh,
not just one,
a
not just one
booty.
set of sliders. This is an equal opportunity sliders. There's equal opportunity sliders. So let's be clear on that.
I wish I could like zoom in on your face.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah, so we have taken your feedback and we've made some adjustments. And of course, I believe if you follow us on social, Stephen actually teased these already. And Vacnar did update that thread, the Pyre thread, with the new images. So if you have any feedback on them, you can go over to that thread. And if we see a large amount of differences in the feedback, we'll definitely relay that over to our development team. But we've already sent them over a report, and that's why they've made the changes that they have made.
Oh, he looks
And
nice.
This is the male version.
I was going to say, do we not have the male one?
Yeah, we have the male. Just, going through
Equal
the-
opportunity. Equal
Yeah.
opportunity.
I like the beard.
Well, sometimes we only show one over the other,
That's
and
true.
people always
That is
ask.
true. I
Uh,
know.
And women's bodies tend to be very controversial, so we usually start with some some of the male
Controversial?
ones. Yeah, people have thoughts and feedback on how they should be, portrayed. So,
That's true.
but I think that we'll provide you guys with sliders that you can adjust based on the different races and how far along those scales we want to showcase. And if you haven't seen our character creator, like if you're new to Ashes of Creation and this is your first stream that you're watching, oh my gosh, go to our YouTube channel, go search in the little search box character creator and go watch our character creator. Our team is like, that's not even our character creator finished, so please go look
No.
at it. It is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And then I'll play the 3D version, and then we will get to our Q&A.
You got the maps, man.
Actually, do you have any
Very
studio
nice.
updates that you want to talk about?
Hiring is going great. We had, I think we had almost 400 applicants last month, and we accepted, I think, 14 of them.
14 new hires.
So we are doing a great job on that front. Very excited with the talent that we have that's joining the team. We're continuing to grow. So things are going really good on that front.
Sweet. Yeah, and I think with that we'll
Your Black Desert
to
is
our Q&A segment.
pretty
if
insane
you're good with that.
when you create a character.
Absolutely.
Alright, and I'll play the video in the background, so you have something to look at whilst we go through them. So our first question here is from North the Mage and Elwin Drill, and they both wanted to know about naval mechanics. Are there any plans to have wind in sailing? And I know we've talked about this topic a little, but we haven't gone into
question.
super depth.
Ooh.
Yes, there is wind. Wind is an important component of the open sea, quote unquote open sea. So that's all non-coastal areas.
Okay.
And that open sea, based on the composition of wind in the open sea, will influence the speed directionally that a boat is traveling in, and how that speed gets influenced by the winds. That can be an important strategic component when discussing like timing for trade runs or timing for what your location is in relationship to your target out at the open sea. And it just creates a little bit more fluid and dynamic experience when you're at sea, that like you're not in this cove and you always know how you're going to interact with the open water and the speed that you have, so you can predict accurately what your intercept rate or distance will look like. If that is a variable and that variable changes, right, then you have to adapt your strategies for that variable. And I think that is a very healthy and keeps things fresh from a perspective of a cat and mouse game that usually occurs between ships in the open waters.
I'm excited for naval combat.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. Next up, we have Kiwi asking about gear customization, which, we do have a thread about it. So, with the most recent dev discussion going on, what were your plans so far with color and dye systems in the color and dye
Absolutely, yeah.
system?
So one of the things that we want to do, again, talking about player agency, is we want to give them the ability to kind of change the appearance of their armor sets that they're wearing. And the way we've approached the dye solution is through a channeled system. We have a 2-channel dye system where the first channel is a lower grade dye that it has influence over between 10 to 20% of your overall armor appearance. And then the second channel dye is a higher tier dye that you have to acquire. And by doing so, you can influence the remaining 30%, up to 30% of that armor appearance. So up to a total of 50% influence that can occur across all the pieces that you wear. Now, one
Similar
unique
to
approach to the
SWTOR.
way we're doing this dye system is we're not allowing individual dyes to be applied on individual items, but instead we keep a cohesion across the set by applying that dye channel to your character. And when you equip a piece with your overall character, it will assume that dye channel from your paper doll. So you apply the dyes to your character, and when you equip a piece of item, it will take that dye and it will influence the channel over that particular piece so that it comes into alignment. And the reason that we're doing that is There's a
Reason?
lot of options with regards to customization for your character appearance, whether it be through transmog, through costumes, through mixing and matching sets and pieces that you can wear, right? And what we want to avoid is the rainbow effect, where these pieces do not look good together, and it creates the clown that's walking down the street, and it's a bit comical to see the clown that's walking down the street. So we've unified it through the dye channel system that applies across your paper doll.
All right. Definitely some thoughts
True,
on
that's the
that.
same thing they have with Swatter. Not all of it looks
Our
good
next question
in
is
that color.
thank
We
you.
just have to wait and
Would
see.
like to know about freeholds. Do you expect most players who want a freehold to be able to get one, or will they be prestige symbols owned by a small fraction of players?
That is a very good question. I think the answer is that if a player wants to achieve a freehold, they can achieve the freehold. However, the amount of effort, resources, and time that's required in order to achieve that freehold is a large amount. It is something that is a monumental achievement for you to get that freehold. And the reason why is because freeholds tie in very heavily to the processing artisanship aspect. Some processing can be done in nodes, but the best processing is done on freeholds. And we want to make sure that there's a little bit of a throttle or gate on the amount of effort that's necessary to achieve that influence over the processing market. And that means that it takes some time to achieve it. So ultimately, to answer that question, anybody who puts the effort in should be able to achieve a freehold, but it is going to be a major achievement for that character.
All right. And our next question is from Nixa and Phantom X, and they want to know about.
And by the way, I just want to make sure we're clear that a freehold is one of 3 types of houses, right, that you can own. So just because the freehold is very difficult to attain doesn't mean that you don't have a space for housing and furniture that you can achieve through our apartment system or an inn or the static in-node housing. Those are alternate methods as well, but they do not have that aspect of the best processing is done there. The best processing is done on the freehold.
And being able to customize the outside of what your freehold looks like. If you're
the static housing, apartment you can't. You can customize the interior, but the static housing and nodes, they do have an outside area that you can customize. Yeah.
I was referring to the apartment, but Thank you for clarifying
specific,
too.
absolutely, and specifically on the freehold, one thing that's unique is the blueprint system, right? Acquiring specific buildings that you can build ancillary to your home on the freehold as well.
And the next question is regarding the weather system, which we showcased. Will there be flooding caused by heavy rain, snow melting, or storms with rivers rising and rougher waters on the ocean, or the opposite with droughts?
Yeah, I think that
Flooding?
we haven't done any work on that yet, but in the weather and seasonal systems, we have talked about the potential of including flooding as well. I mean, the arid or desert type climate system, that can be applied relatively with ease. The flooding can be a little bit more tricky from a tech art perspective, but it is something that we have discussed. Having certain submerged areas that flex between seasons of being flooded, where it becomes an underwater environment, and having times where it is a non-water environment for dungeons. That is something that we haven't worked on yet, but we have talked about. Wouldn't be present in Alpha 2, but it's something we want to explore.
It would be very cool to have like that dynamic combat where like, ooh, during the winter you want to go there for this, and during the summer you want to go there for that.
Yeah.
And also on that side, we have shown how our tide system works too. So like,
the tides,
if you're interested in seeing that too.
Yeah.
And we have from Bomanizer, they want to know about game settings. Will dense foliage be baseline in the game, or will people turn them off in the settings to minimize PvP efficiency? Think hiding in bushes.
We will not allow. We will not allow players to to adjust the density of foliage actors in the world. That will be universal.
Okay.
So, it's going to be, of course, there are going to be areas that are more dense than others. It's meant to be part of a part of the world that players can utilize for certain purposes, like hiding in for PvP. However, there will be collision with those foliage actors and the player capsules. So, as you might see that bush moving and think, "Huh, that's odd. That doesn't look like wind. There must be something there." And that's the kind of immersion that we want, right?
Yeah. and like when you're walking in the grass, if things move and you're like, what's going on over there?
Right.
That would be cool. As a fellow PvPer, that'd be fun. Triel wants to know about weapons. Will equipping different weapons change your skill set? And if so,
No.
how will you balance that in regards to class identity, as in having character be
Sure.
defined by their equipment base as opposed to their class?
I am not a fan of in MMORPGs having equipment-based skill sets. I think that you have class-focused skill kits, and that if I know your class, I know what you have access to. I might not necessarily know what you've spec'd into, but I am sorry, I strongly dislike the idea of tying the skills into the weapon. I think it's unique. I think it's novel. It's just not for me necessarily. Our approach is not going to be providing skills through weapons. It's going to be providing skills through classes.
And then we have
Okay.
Hamlet, who wants to know about bugs and exploits. Are you guys open to server rollbacks in the event of an unforeseen bug or dupe that would introduce an economy-breaking amount of currency into
Yeah,
the economy?
server rollbacks are emergency scenarios. Are
I
we
don't
open?
know
Are we
with
open
the-
to taking emergency action if it's necessary? Yes, of course we're open to doing whatever is necessary to address unforeseen problems. But it should be a last ditch option.
That's a last
I was gonna say
resort.
that too. Like from my perspective, this is definitely my forte. You know, if we had something like that, we would remove the dupe. Anybody who
Yep.
exploited that, you know,
Yeah, we'll have lots of
we
tools
would have
available to
repercussions
us.
for those things. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and we can easily remove those, you know, those pieces of economy from the system.
Not just pieces, those people.
Them creatures.
There will be repercussions for the exploiters, but I think
Yes.
sometimes there's a dupe and you don't know that it's happening, right? Like you're just like, oh, I accidentally did something.
Oh, I
don't think that
accidentally
person
found
should-
50 legendary items in my inventory. How
Yeah.
did this get here? I have
If it
no
was-
clue.
If it was over and over, you know what you're doing. But if someone just
Right.
did it once and was like, whoa,
Yes.
and reported it, we just remove it, right? Like I think like
I have
there's
10
a
billion
difference.
gold. How did this get into my inventory?
There's a difference in exploiting versus someone happenstancing upon
Right.
something and reporting it.
Yes.
So if you encounter something, please report it. That way there's no action on your account. Golid would like to know about caravans. Caravan attackers have only the reward of stealing the caravan goods without any risk currently planned according to the wiki. Since the game is about risk versus reward, what is the risk you plan to add for caravan attackers?
Well, I mean, there is a level of risk that comes with the attacker, right? We have progression paths that exist for bandits and that exist for defenders. And if you choose to opt into a caravan attack, you sign up for that attack, and you fail that attack, it is detrimental to your path of progression down the bandit area, right? That's one thing. Two is, you know, of course, you have gear decay. You have degradation that can be suffered if you die. That is a cost. And then you also
Repair
have
bill.
a reputation. And if your reputation precedes you when you want to make movements of good and transit goods across the world, and you see somebody who's doing it and you want to participate as a defender or a participant, they might say, hey, screw you. You were just murdering my people last week, and I saw that you're like on the top of the bandit list for killing caravans. So, you know, it has repercussions in the sense that it locks you out of certain player groups. It provides decay to your armor. It has deleterious effects on your progression in the attacking and the bandit progression of caravan attacks or defense. So there are costs there.
All right. Our next question is from Spyromancer, and they want to know about looting. If looting rights are based on a blended tag and damage done system, will there be any mechanics in place to ensure roles like tanks and healers have an equal shot even when they haven't dealt as much damage?
I think that's the reason for the blended approach. The reason that excuse me. The reason that we're doing a hybrid system between tag and damage done is for the purposes of those classes who may not be as DPS oriented as other classes. The tag system, you know, all classes are going to have a sprinkling of immediate effects of instantaneous casts, and they can use that to tag a target, and that'll give them a modifier on the looting right. So plus 10% or plus 15% will balance that, but it'll give them plus 10 to 15% on overall damage done if they tag the target, and then their damage will make up the remainder of that percentage completion. So if I do 50% damage to a target, but someone else has the tag, I'm not going to be able to claim that looting right. They'll have done the other 50% plus 10 or 15.
I see. And things should be
And then
fine that
our
way.
last question is from Lithion, and they would like to know about artisan gear. Will gear for artisans be strong enough for a player to defend against an equal level player who is in combat gear?
Gear for artisans. So we actually just had a we actually just had a conversation about the gear for artisans. The gear for artisans are going to live alongside your adventuring gear. So you will currently, the approach is, and we'll test this, but currently the approach is you'll have artisanship-oriented gear. This might be beneficial for your gathering, it might be beneficial for your processing or crafting or whatever it is, right? Your profession, essentially. You will craft that gear, you will equip that gear. It'll live almost as a undergarment slot, so to speak, and then you can activate that, and it will show the appearance, if you wish, during the activation when you gain the benefit from the gear itself. And then could disappear afterwards and go back to your adventuring gear. That's like the current approach. We're going to play with that a little bit. There's some discussion and disagreement on the team about how we do that. But our hopes are for Alpha 2, we will have, I think, a couple of sets at least. You know, we're demonstrating all of the artisanship from gathering to processing to crafting in limited fashion in Alpha 2. And we want to have that gear present to kind of play with this approach.
And then the flip side of this question, in case they meant it this way, if you had crafted gear versus gear that you attained through, like...
I thought they were talking about, like, profession gear.
I believe that is, but just in
Oh.
case that this is the other alternative way that they meant that question, how would crafting gear compare to, like, that of, you know,
How would
raid gear
crafted
or
gear?
PvE gear,
crafted gear in the game is the best gear.
What?
So I'm going to tell you one thing that I cannot, you know, I'll be less inflammatory in my speech. One thing that I'm not a fan of is that you develop a crafting system in a game, right? And you've spent a lot of time making this from a material and resource perspective, all the tables that you can receive, all the connectivity in the economy and how crafting is associated with the game. And then you undermine the crafting entirely by presenting a separate route of gear acquisition that is on par with the crafting efforts. So here you have these people who are acquiring all of the resources, getting all the recipes, leveling up their professions, and then everything they make is less or equal to anything you could just have chosen the easier path of and gone down the questing and received the best gear. So what we do focus on is that crafters make the best shit. Excuse me, the best things.
The best shit.
They make the best things.
You gotta
And
bleep
so they make the best things. And the reason
Okay.
they make the best things is because the effort required to make those things is monumental. And that's an important aspect of the whole.
Should be like that.
Awesome. And I'm pretty sure they meant it the first way, but I think having both answers is great for the audience. And with that, we're going to wrap up our June update. We hope that you all have had an amazing month. We definitely have on our end. We have so much more to share with you throughout the upcoming months, so we hope that you will tune in next month for our July update. And any other final things you want to mention, Stephen?
I just want to say at the end of last year, we promised you that this year would be a banger when it comes to the stuff that we showcase. And I've been very proud of the quality that we've achieved in the showcase of the character creator, of the weather systems, of the combat direction. And I think there's a lot more great stuff in store for you guys. So I just want to reiterate, the most important thing is get registered on our forums, go comment, give us your feedback. The big question is, do you like the direction of today's update? Is it a positive change? Is it better than where it was, right? That is what's important. Give us your experiences, give us your feedback. Do it on our forums or on our Reddit or on our YouTube, wherever you want to do it, wherever you feel most comfortable. But feel free to get engaged. That's the whole reason we do these updates, is because, one, I mean, we love showing the work that we do, but two, we want to elicit that feedback. So that's the important aspect.
And right now there are quite a few threads up. There's a gear color customization, dev discussion, and our basic weapon melee attack combos. Both of those feedback threads are up. Please give us feedback on them. Also, just as a reminder, our opulent negotiations cosmetics will be swapped over on July 13th. So if you want to grab those by 11 a.m. And of course, thank you to everyone who tuned in live. If you're watching this on YouTube, we super duper appreciate you as well. And we hope that you
Oh,
all
that's
stay
cute.
healthy and safe. And this video will be up on YouTube, as well as we will release the potentially the combat video as well. We'll be discussing.
Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll do that right after the stream. It'll be in 4K, so you guys can head over to YouTube, take a look there in its 4K gloriness.
Yes, and we will post it to all our social channels as well. And of course, those will uploaded to YouTube. Head on over to our YouTube. Don't forget, on the dev update, if you leave us a comment and subscribe to our channel, next month you could be spotlighted as our lucky winner, and we might answer your question or talk about your comment. And with that, we hope to see you over on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Snapchat, whatever social platform you prefer. We
All
are
the
there
all the
time.
stuff.
We are interacting with you guys on a daily basis, so please come hang out with us and tell us all the things and your thoughts. And we will see you
Wait,
next
do we
time.
have a? Do we just? I was just. No, never mind. Sorry. Go ahead. No, we're good.
All right, I'm like, what? Where's it going?
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have an
Bye,
awesome
everyone.
weekend.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
All right. Well, that's gonna be that react for today. Until the next one.